This is Urso. Urso just read a headline that said he eats a credit card worth of plastic every week, and Urso has not been okay since. He threw out his water bottle. He stopped drinking tea. He is currently holding his breath. Urso is not handling this well. So let's do something reckless today. Let's actually check that number.
I'm the famous one.
You have seen this claim. A credit card a week? 5 grams of plastic straight into you every 7 days. It is one of the most shared science facts of the last decade. It comes from a 2019 report by the Worldwide Fund for Nature, working with researchers in Newcastle, Australia. And it spread because it is perfect. It's physical. You can picture it. You can hold a credit card in your hand and feel horrified. It got repeated by newspapers, by documentaries, by every wellness account on the internet, and eventually by your uncle at dinner. It became the thing everybody knows about microplastics. There is just one problem. When other scientists went back and checked the math, it did not hold up. Follow-up analyses found serious errors in how the estimate was built, and concluded it overshoots by several orders of magnitude. Even the original range was 100 to 5,000 milligrams. The headline quietly used the very top of that range and dropped the rest. So what is the honest number? The careful estimates are much, much smaller. Some put weekly intake closer to a few micrograms. Others land around a grain of salt.
It's me. Just me.
Not a credit card. A grain of salt. That is the difference between a scary headline and a measurement. And look at Urso, already celebrating. Urso thinks he won. Urso should sit down. Because here is the thing that the credit card story got exactly backwards. The interesting question was never how much plastic you swallow. Almost all of it passes straight through you and leaves. Weight was always the wrong thing to measure.
You'll never see me.
Think of it like swallowing sand at the beach. Unpleasant, mostly harmless, and it comes right back out. Nobody writes headlines about the sand. And the word microplastic is doing a lot of hiding here. A microplastic can be 5 millimeters across, big enough to pick up with tweezers. A nanoplastic is 1,000 times smaller than the width of a hair. Those two things behave nothing alike inside a body, and the credit card number lumped them together. The real question is, what happens to the tiny fraction that does not leave? Because the smallest particles, the nanoplastics, are small enough to cross out of your gut and into your bloodstream. And that is where the story stops being about grams. In 2024, researchers looked for plastic in human brain tissue from donors after death. They found it, in nearly every sample. The concentrations were 7 to 30 times higher in brain tissue than in liver or kidney. The brain, of all places, appears to be where these particles accumulate most. And here's the part that made people sit up. When they compared samples from 2016 with samples from 2024, the plastic load had risen by roughly 50% in 8 years. Now, before anyone panics, finding a particle somewhere is not the same as proving it caused harm. Nobody has shown that the plastic in those brains did anything. That study measured presence, not damage. Hold on to that distinction because we are about to need it again. The most serious findings so far came from arteries. Researchers examined plaque removed from patients' carotid arteries and split them into 2 groups, plaque with detectable plastic and plaque without. Over the following years, the patients whose plaque contained plastic had about 4.5 times the rate of heart attack, stroke, or death. That is a big number, and it deserves an equally big asterisk. This is an association, not a proven cause. People with plastic in their arteries might differ in other ways, where they live, what they eat, what they are exposed to at work. The honest summary of the science right now is this. We know it gets in, we know it accumulates, we have found a worrying correlation. We have not proven it harms you. Anyone telling you otherwise in either direction is selling something. Which is actually good news, in a strange way. Because while the scientists work that out, you can just take in less of it, and that part is genuinely easy. So where does it come from? Most of your exposure walks in through your mouth, and one factor beats all the others. Heat. Heat plus plastic. That is the single biggest lever you control.
Let me heat that for you.
Every time plastic gets hot, it sheds. Microwaving leftovers in a plastic container, pouring boiling water into a plastic kettle, hot coffee in a paper cup, which is lined with plastic, by the way. That lining is why the cup doesn't dissolve in your hands. One study found that microwaving food in plastic containers released particles by the millions. Not because the plastic is evil, but because heat and plastic simply do not get along. So the single best habit in this entire video is stupidly simple. Move the food onto a plate before you microwave it. That's it. That is the whole tip. It costs nothing and takes 4 seconds.
I'm just paper, mostly.
Now let's talk about the most surprising item in your kitchen, the tea bag. Those silky pyramid tea bags are not silk and often not paper. They are plastic mesh. And when you drop plastic mesh into water at 95 degrees, it does what plastic does when it gets hot. Researchers measured a single premium tea bag releasing about 11.6 billion microplastic particles plus 3 billion nanoplastic particles into one cup. That is, orders of magnitude more than researchers had found in other foods, from one cup of tea, made with a bag that costs a few cents. The fix is almost insultingly easy. Loose-leaf tea and a metal strainer. Same tea, no mesh, and honestly, it tastes better because the leaves have room to open.
240,000 friends per liter.
Bottled water. In 2024, a new laser technique let researchers count the particles that older methods were too coarse to see. The result, about 240,000 plastic fragments per liter, 10 to 100 times more than previous estimates, and about 90% of them were nanoplastics, the small ones that can cross into tissue. And a good chunk of it was not from the water source at all. It was from the bottle itself and from the cap grinding against the neck every time you open and close it. Bottled water is also, on average, worse than tap on this measure. You are paying a premium for the plastic. Leaving a case of bottles in a hot car is the worst version of this: heat, plastic, and time all at once. If you have ever drunk from a bottle that tasted faintly of nothing good, that is what you were tasting. Let's finish the tour of your kitchen, because there are 3 more sources worth knowing about. First, the plastic cutting board. Every knife stroke carves microscopic shavings out of it, and those shavings go into your food. One estimate put a heavy plastic board user at tens of millions of particles a year. Wood and metal don't do this. Second, scratched non-stick pans. That coating is designed to stay put, and while it's intact, it's fine. Once it's scratched or flaking, it's coming off into the pan. If you can see the metal through it, it's done its tour of duty. Third, and this one surprises people, ultra-processed food carries more plastic than whole food. Not because of the ingredients, but because of the journey. More machines, more tubing, more packaging, more contact. Every step is another chance to pick some up. Which means the boring advice your doctor already gave you, eat more whole food, quietly happens to be microplastic advice too. Nobody planned that. It just falls out of how the supply chain works. Now for the source almost nobody thinks about, and it is not food at all. It's your living room. Your fleece jacket, your polyester shirt, your carpet, and your couch are all made of plastic thread. They shed constantly into the air and into house dust. Some estimates suggest we inhale a meaningful share of our total exposure this way. Your washing machine is the champion here. A single load of synthetic clothing can release hundreds of thousands of fibers into the water, which is why laundry lint is basically plastic confetti. You don't need to burn your wardrobe. Wash synthetics less often and, on cold, dry them on a line when you can, open a window, and vacuum. Boring, cheap, effective. That's going to be a theme. So, here is the entire practical list. 5 things, ranked by how much they matter. 1. And this is most of the benefit, never heat food in plastic. Plate it first, glass or ceramic for reheating. This one habit beats everything else on the list combined. 2. Filter your tap water instead of buying bottles. Reverse osmosis removes upward of 99% of microplastics, and even a decent carbon filter helps.
99.9%, buddy.
3. Loose-leaf tea instead of mesh bags. 4. A wooden or metal cutting board instead of plastic, and retire the flaking pan. 5. Store food in glass or steel, especially anything hot, oily, or acidic, because those 3 pull the most out of plastic. Notice what is not on this list. No supplement, no detox, no expensive gadget. Nobody has shown any product can remove microplastics from your body, and anyone selling you one is inventing a cure for a disease we cannot yet measure. And now the honest ending, because you have earned it. You cannot get to zero. It is in the rain, in the soil, in the ocean, in the dust in your house right now. Anyone promising you a plastic-free body is lying, and probably charging for it. But you can absolutely cut the biggest, dumbest sources, and they happen to be the cheap ones. A plate instead of a plastic tub. Loose tea instead of a mesh bag. A wooden board. Tap water through a filter. And here is my real problem with the credit card headline. It was too big to act on. When a number sounds that hopeless, people don't change anything. They just feel doomed and scroll on. That is what a bad number actually costs you. Not just being wrong, it swaps the small useful action for a large useless panic. Urso threw out his water bottle and kept microwaving his lunch in a plastic tub. He did the dramatic thing and skipped the thing that mattered. The true story is smaller, stranger, and far more useful. Less than you feared in your gut. More than you'd like in your tissue. And most of the fix costs nothing. You were in the cave, Urso. Not because you cared, but because you believed the scariest version instead of the true one. That is the whole trap. So put the plate in the microwave, buy the loose tea, and step into the light. If this was useful, subscribe so Urso doesn't have to learn everything the hard way. Again,